Man, just a grinded-out victory for the Tar Heels over Clemson, 65-55. Tar Heels get the win on the road. And, Adam, I kind of feel – I mean, the Pitt and Clemson games to me are similar, not exactly the same, but similar in the sense that I don't think Carolina leaves either one of these games thinking, man, we played a great ball game. And they certainly – didn't shoot terrifically. They shot 42% for the game. It just was a game that didn't feel like it had a lot of rhythm to it, a lot of flow. There were 0 fast break points in the entire game. Neither team scored one. So it never got out and moved. Instead, it was very much a slugfest, slowed down, run plays, half court, just physical, grinded out type of game. But a couple things about this game were impressive. One is that Carolina, again, ended up with a pretty significant advantage on the glass. 44-33, Carolina plus 11 on the glass. Now, that means that in the last 2 games, Carolina's plus 21 on the glass against the top 2 teams in the league in rebounding margin going into those games. Pitt number 1, Clemson was number 2. Carolina out-rebounded Pitt by 10, out-rebounded Clemson by 11. The Tar Heels also are defending really well. Clemson shot 36%, just 1 of 18 from three-point range, and this is a team that came in shooting 39%. So some of that was Clemson had an off-day shooting, absolutely. But some of that was that I thought Carolina did a really good job defensively, particularly on Joe Girard, the Syracuse transfer. He was 1 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 4 from three-point range. P.J. Hall, terrific player. I said it in the pregame. I believe it. I think if you voted for ACC Player of the Game on Saturday morning, R.J. Davis or P.J. Hall would probably be the winner. Now, of course, there's a ton of other really good players, and that's nowhere close to being decided. But if you voted that moment, I think one of those two guys would win it. Hall finishes with just 10 points and 5 rebounds. He was 4 of 13 from the field, and he fouled out. So Carolina did a really good job defensively. And, Adam, this is now a streak of good defense for Carolina. So last 4 opponents, that's Oklahoma, Charleston Southern, Pittsburgh, and Clemson. Those 4 teams shooting 35% from the floor, 24% from 3, and averaging just 60 points per game. So while Carolina, I don't think, has played close to its best game against Pittsburgh or Clemson, the rebounding and the defense and their competitiveness and their just hard, high level of effort, I think has earned them these 2 wins, and I thought it did that on Saturday.
I think Carolina's done a good job of identifying who can hurt them the most on the other team. It was Blake Henson at Pitt, and then it was Hall and Girard at Clemson, and then essentially eliminating them and forcing the opponent to beat them with someone other than their best offensive players. Girard, Carolina, great scout by Pat Sullivan. They wanted to keep Girard from shooting three-pointers because that's what he's good at, and if he makes 3 quick ones or something, all of a sudden you're in trouble. Wanted to make him a 2-point shooter, and he did. He took 6 of them, which is a high number for Joe Girard. And so he was having an off shooting day. You would expect him to make more than 1 of those 2-point shots, but he didn't. And Armando Bacot sneakily has done a really good job against P.J. Hall throughout his career. And you could tell P.J. Hall didn't mind banging a little bit in there, but he also only played 24 minutes before he fouled out. And he got pulled out of both the first half and the second half early after getting an early foul. And then second half got a little lecture from Brad Brownell. And those are minutes when Clemson needed him on the court. There was really only one stretch early in the second half when it felt like Shefflin was just getting any rebound he wanted. But other than that, the Tar Heels were good on the glass.
I'm honestly, at the end of the game, I was surprised that Carolina had as large a rebounding advantage as it did because, to your point, like, it didn't feel that way during the game. But, Adam, I think it's also worth noting how much Carolina just, like, boa constricted Clemson down the last 5 or 6 minutes. Clemson didn't score in the last 5:02 of the game. And it felt like there were two important stretches in that second half. And Pete Chilcutt, who was doing the game, brought this up at one point. I thought it was good, but he said, it just feels like whichever one of these teams can go on a run is probably going to win it. And I think that's right. And it was Carolina who all of a sudden, and I remember one of them was Paxton Wojcik, one of them was R.J. Davis, one of them was Seth Trimble. There might have been another one in there where Carolina hit a bunch of threes like right in a row. And it just felt like that was an important push for the Tar Heels to just all of a sudden kind of spark the offense and get some points in a short amount of time. And then that last 5 minutes, it was still very much possession by possession, but Carolina was winning every single possession, whether that was Harrison Ingram getting to the rim for a layup, whether that was the Tar Heels. Cormac Ryan had a great defensive effort at one point during this stretch, forcing, I believe it was Chauncey Wiggins, to take a tough, fall away 14-foot jump shot late in the shot clock. It just felt like those two stretches in the second half were the keys, and that last 5 minutes in particular was really impressive from the Tar Heels.
Ryan is a better defender than I think he gets credit for. He spent a fair amount of time on Girard, and his size seemed to bother him. And he's quicker than you think he is. And I think that sort of embodies the Tar Heel defense as a whole, where there is no leaky black. There is no one guy who you can count on to stop the other team's one guy. But these five guys, and it goes deeper than that because I do think Carolina's got legitimate depth. When you were talking about the threes, two of those three were coming off the bench, Wojcik and Trimble. So the depth exists down the bench, and when they're out there together, they play defense as a unit really well. And I think that's something you can carry forward even more so than one guy had a really good defensive effort against one guy.
You mentioned the depth. I thought this was another game where Carolina's bench gave them something. And it feels like the Tar Heels are kind of settled in to 9, and I'll give Zayden High a half, because you see Zayden High sometimes and then sometimes not, just kind of depending on the game. But the starting five, and then Trimble, Washington, Wojcik, and Withers. I mean, and I think that's the 9 that you're going to see the most. Again, you may see High some, and you should. He continues to give Carolina something when he comes off the bench. But, Withers didn't shoot well. He was 1 of 4, but he had 6 rebounds in a game where Carolina was struggling at times to rebound. We said, again, they had a big rebound advantage when it was all said and done. But I actually thought he was a big part of that, because Harrison Ingram, for as good as he's been, was struggling to keep Shefflin off the boards early in the second half. Coach Davis pulled him out, put in Withers, and I thought Withers helped change the tenor of the game as far as that was concerned. Seth Trimble, I mean, he clearly has earned the trust of the coaching staff. He was one of the 5 on the floor for the last couple minutes of the game, and along with Davis, Ryan, Ingram, and Baycott. So, I mean, it just feels like Carolina is finding the personnel that it wants, finding the right roles for them. I think the staff has done a really good job in mixing and matching some of these, kind of depending on what the situation is in the game. So that has been, in my opinion, a big plus for Carolina to this point of the season.
I thought it felt like Withers had more than 6 rebounds, because there were times he kept the ball alive, and then someone else got credit for the rebound, but really he made the play. And then I think the other thing is what you mentioned about Coach Davis taking Ingram out early. I think there have been times these last couple years where someone is performing poorly, but you really have no choice but to leave him out there, and then it never gets better. I think the ability to have someone start slowly and say, okay, you're out, and I've got someone I trust to go in there and do what you're not doing, that makes Carolina a lot better team, because it gives Harrison Ingram the chance to sit for a couple minutes, figure it out, and then come back in and be Harrison Ingram without the game getting out of hand. That's what you mean when you say you have depth. You have the ability to do exactly that.
Good win, Adam. I mean, this was a quality win for Carolina. I mean, a team that is a good team, number one, in Clemson. The computers love Clemson, so that's a nice computer win, what we all want for the Tar Heels. I think Carolina now has, is it 4 quad one wins? Purdue has 5, but that's the only team that has more than the Tar Heels right now. So that's good. It just felt like a nice quality road win. And anytime you can get a road win in the league, that's a good thing. You've got State coming up on Wednesday, another road opportunity. So as not fun as having 3 road games in a row is, well, shoot, if you go 3-0, then all of a sudden you're in good shape. Even if you go 2-1, obviously you don't want to lose on Wednesday. I'm not suggesting that, obviously. But I think Carolina's had a successful road run here, and they can make it a really good one if they can win on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think Clemson will continue to be near the top of the league. I mean,
yes.
Chase Hunter, good.
He's
P.J.
good.
Hall, good. Gerard, good. Shefflin, good at what he does.
Yeah, and they've got, R.J. Godfrey, Dylan Hunter. They've got some nice pieces. I think I said this on the podcast last week, and if not, I said it on the radio pregame on Saturday. To me, Carolina, Clemson, Duke, and Miami are the 4 best teams in the league right now. That can obviously change, and they aren't the 4 that have the best records right now, like State's 3-0, for example. But to me, those are the 4 best teams right now in the league. And so to go on the road against one of those teams and get a win, I think is huge.
Yeah, I think Wake might be 4A.
Wake is, they just beat Miami and Winston. So yes, they're in the hunt.
Also
graphic.
receiving votes.
Yeah, they're in the hunt graphic.
I just don't feel like I've seen Wake.
Yeah, I just don't know enough about
I've seen those other 4.
Yeah.
I've just seen Wake's scores, but they seem to be playing well.
Yeah. Yeah. Wake and State have both had very good starts to conference play. Yes, they're in the hunt graphic over there.
Wake, the rare ACC team having a good year that the Tar Heels don't either play twice or once at their place. Yeah. Wake comes to Chapel Hill. That's the only meeting.
Adam, anything else about this game, Carolina-Clemson, on Saturday afternoon in Littlejohn?
No.